Alright, we're talking about solving systems of equations by substitution, and there are several setups for it. This one is the simplest, where both of the equations are already equal to the same variable, and if two things are equal to the same thing, then they must be equal to each other. So our equation could be negative 4x plus 12 is equal to negative 2x plus 4. Now this is a relatively simple equation to solve. You can add 4x to both sides of the equation to get you 2x plus 4 is equal to 12. And then we can subtract the 4 from both sides, which will get me 2x is equal to 8, and therefore x must be equal to 4 after we divide both sides by 2. Now that's not sufficient because remember there are x's and there are y's in this equation, so what we need to do is replace that back into the original equation. We need to substitute it back in. It doesn't matter which equation you're going to put it into. I put it into the top. Negative 4 times x is 4, so I'm going to put 4 in for x, plus 12. Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16, plus 12 is y is equal to a negative 4. So my solution to this system of equations is a positive 4, negative 4. Now that is the simplest case. The other ones are not, both equations are solved for y. It's still the same general concept. We have y is negative 3x plus 9, which means I can take a negative 3x plus 9 and I can plug it in where y is because that's what y is. So I'm going to replace the y completely in the second equation with the expression that y is. So we have 6x minus 6 times, and now I'm going to replace the y that is right here with what y is, the negative 3x plus 9. That goes in for y is equal to 18. And now we have an equation that is already set down into just one variable, and so this is an easy equation to solve using general equation methods. Distribute the negative 6 and that'll get you a positive 18x. Negative 6 times 9 is negative 54 is equal to 18. Then we need to go ahead and combine our like terms. 6 and 18 makes 24x minus 54 is equal to 18. Add both 54 to both sides of this, and 54 plus 18 would give me a 24x is equal to 72. And then after the division of 24 on both sides, we will have x is equal to 3. Now this is the value for x. You cannot forget to find the value for y. It is beneficial for us to plug it into the top equation in this one because that's the one that is already equal to y. We could plug it into the bottom, but it might be a little bit more difficult. Y is equal to a negative 3 times x, which is positive 3, plus 9. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9 plus 9. Y is equal to 0. Now my solution would be 3, 0. That's the second type, is when one equation is already solved for y and one is not. The third type is when two equations, neither one is solved for y. And what we need to do is when we look at this equation, we need to pick one to solve for y, or we could solve it for x, it doesn't really matter. But you can see that y is by itself, it just is sitting alone there in the first equation. So what I'm going to do is solve that equation for y by simply adding 3x to both sides. Now the rest of the process is exactly the same. We now have a new equation, y is equal to a positive 3x minus 5, and then we have, of course, our second equation down here. So we do the same general process. We have something that y is equal to, a 3x minus 5, and I'm going to replace the y in the other equation with that. So we have a negative 6x plus 2 times 3x minus 5 is equal to negative 6. And we can go through the same general process, distributive property, negative 6 plus 6x plus or minus 10 is equal to a negative 6. And then we, of course, combine our like terms. Now this one is a little bit interesting because whenever I combine these like terms together, I get no more x's. And I don't need to write that because I don't have any. And I just am left with negative 10 is equal to negative 6. Now that is an interesting situation because I can't solve an equation for x if I don't have any x's left over. So what we do is we call this one no solution. It's no solution because negative 10 is not equal to negative 6. If we got down to this final step and we had negative 10 is equal to negative 10, or negative 6 equals negative 6, or 0 equals 0, or 2 equals 2, anything that is like that, A number is always equal to itself, and it will always be equal to itself, and we would call this one infinite solutions. So those are the differences between the two special cases.